He was nominated in March 2009 by President Barack Obama, and later on in May was confirmed by the American Congress as the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. NEAL WOLIN. The Deputy Secretary of American Department of Treasury, Mr. NEAL WOLIN, is visiting 3 countries of West Africa, namely Côte d'Ivoire, Togo, and Liberia. Let's remember that the 3 countries have in common the weakness of the economy. For the first, it is slightly due to the 2010 election crisis. The second is a small territory without abundant natural resources. And for the last, it is due to political and military disadvantage. Mr. NEAL WOLIN will be delivering the American Treasury support measures to the 3 government. It includes transparency, restraints of public expenses, and the oversight of local government on their economy. We were given the opportunity to have an interview with Mr. NEAL WOLIN, the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury of the United States of America. What is the purpose of your visit to Côte d'Ivoire?
Well, I'm visiting this week Côte d'Ivoire, Togo, and Liberia to see firsthand how progress is being made, economic progress and otherwise, in 3 important countries in West Africa. And I'm having a chance to meet with senior government officials, representatives of the international financial institutions in these countries, and members of the private sector to get a sense of what accomplishments they've already achieved and where they are headed with respect to their economic issues.
What are the different duties of the Department of Treasury?
Well, the Treasury Department of the United States has a broad range of responsibilities. We are very much focused on our own economy, on our own fiscal issues and taxing issues, making sure that our financial sector is healthy and capable of providing the kind of growth and credit facilitation that's important to our own economic development. We're also the representative of the United States to the international financial institutions, to the IMF, to the World Bank, to the African Development Bank. And we're engaged with countries across the world on their own economic circumstances, on trying to provide assistance where we can provide it, technical assistance, engaged with finance ministries and central banks as countries are focused on their own economic paths and as we altogether are focused on growth of the world's economy.
In which area does the United States Treasury help countries around the world? In which areas?
We provide advice and technical assistance on public financial management, on budgeting, on revenue, on customs revenue. We are engaged in a full range of discussions about transparency and about good governance, both of the financial sector and of the broader economy. And so we have a very broad agenda as we speak with and spend time with our colleagues in governments across the world.
When you provide assistance to poor countries, for example, how can you make sure that people who are very moneyless can take profit of this assistance?
Well, the United States government across the globe, and absolutely here in West Africa, very focused on providing assistance that really matters to people as they live their everyday lives. So we have provided many, many millions of dollars here in Côte d'Ivoire and billions of dollars across the globe in fighting HIV/AIDS through our PEPFAR program. We are very focused on providing technical assistance and helping countries develop their own capacity with respect to their agriculture sector, whether it's infrastructure, roads, irrigation, seeds, technology, and so forth, so that countries can put in place mechanisms that will allow farmers and families that depend on the agricultural sector to be the beneficiaries of these programs, to see the actual tangible effects of countries putting in place programs that really help the sustainability of the agriculture sector and its inclusion, so that not just the governments realize the benefit, but the people of these countries realize those benefits.
What is your message to the different governments that you meet around the world or around Africa? Because the barrier here in Africa is corruption. So what is your message to them when you talk to them? How do you express them your need or the department's need?
Well, you know, the circumstances vary quite substantially from country to country, both across different regions of the globe and certainly here within Africa. But you're right to suggest that it's important for countries to have economies and financial systems that are transparent, that are open, that incent private sector activity, small individual farmers and small businesses, and investment from overseas. An important component of that transparency and of creating the right conditions so that the private sector does its share in the development of economic growth, both here in West Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa more generally, and also across the globe, is to make sure that we have systems that are free of corruption, that are transparent, in which everyone can compete fairly, yes, and in which the rule of law is really the key aspect that allows the economy to be reliable and allows people to participate in the economy on a safe, reliable, sustainable basis.
How can you explain the fact that Africa is a rich continent? I mean, talking about resources, and meanwhile it is backward, always talking about development.
Well, I think obviously Africa is a very rich continent in terms of resources, and increasingly the economies of many, many countries in Africa are doing better and better. And if you look across Africa, there are many examples of countries with strong leadership and with the appropriate amount of transparency and inclusiveness have made important strides over the last set of years. If you think about it in terms of GDP growth, or if you think about it in terms of poverty reduction, countries across Africa are doing quite well. And of course, the real issue is for them to continue to do well and for them to do better and better. And our engagement, my trip here, is part of trying to discuss with at least these three African governments where they are and how they can continue to move along a path where we will be there to be their friend and their partner, to provide assistance and to provide technical know-how so that they can realize their own plans for the further development of their countries.
Are you optimistic about the future development of Africa?
I am optimistic. Of course, there are lots of challenges here in West Africa and in Africa generally. Challenges around transparency and creating the right climate to make sure that the private sector does its share. But I think that there has been an impressive level of growth over the last few years, some real success stories across this continent, and I'm optimistic that will continue. But it will require strong leadership, and it will require making sure that growth is inclusive, and it will require making sure that governments are transparent and fair and fundamentally grounded in the rule of law. And so I think with those ingredients, there's every reason to expect that growth in Africa will come, it will continue, and it will accelerate.
What do you expect from African leaders?
I think the key is to be very focused on good governance, inclusive politics that makes sure that people have an opportunity to have their voice heard, an opportunity to participate in the political process, but also to participate in the economic sphere so that the efforts of governments in the direction of development are broadly gauged and are inclusive, and they involve all kinds of people from civil society and from the economy, so that these kinds of developments, this amount of growth, is sustainable, not just economically, but also politically.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.